The second you said it was hot, it was not hot. So. Wait a minute. But that instant technology is...
Hey, pineapples!
But needless to say, I understand why that subject upsets the absolute shit out of some people.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, it's like someone else in the infamous thread said, that's one of those situations the Second Amendment's good for.
SMF Veritas, that's a new one. Welcome to the show. Hey, James is with us for Firearms Friday. Yes, sir. Let's do this. Ooh, I almost hit the regular show. No, this isn't the regular show. This is the good show. That's probably the trick. Morning.
Morning.
SMF says he's usually asleep when we come on. Well, we're glad you joined us this morning. It is Firearms Friday, and I don't think we have any real big gun news to talk about this week, do we? So it's going to be DGUs this morning.
Well, we were supposed to do wall-to-wall DGUs last week.
We were, and that was a pretty important one that we ran over the DGUs on.
Now there's
the FBI
news.
actively underreporting the number of lives saved by merely being armed. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and look, there's plenty of like news.
Oh yeah,
like absolutely. It's most of it's not firearms related.
But it's Gun Day Fun Day, Firearms Friday. And you know, I was gonna introduce this by saying before we get to the DGUs, I want to watch this clip. But let's be clear, this is a DGU.
Yeah. So
what do we got here? Oh. No, I got some criticism here. I mean, come on, man. It's just a mountain lion. You can't be bothered to film it in landscapes so we see what's going on better. Situational awareness.
didn't even have to hit it, and it said, "You know what? Nah."
I don't think he bothers with the third shot. Cat walks off. And, you know, it's fair to say it's just a cat. It's just a cat.
Yeah, it's like...
It's a 120-pound cat. That's a whole lot of cat.
Yeah, what do you think? It's got like 3-inch claws?
Yeah.
like ruin your day.
Like the scene from Jurassic Park where he pulls out the petrified raptor claw. It's like, he gets you across here. So they're still alive when they start to eat.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, we've talked before about how, you know, there's like bears and stuff like that that just exist in the world. And
yeah.
If the guy that filmed that was a convicted felon, Well, he would not have been allowed to have been carrying a pistol.
Correct. So he would either be dead or on his way back to jail. Those are your choices. Those are your choices.
Yeah. You know, and that convicted felon thing, every now and then our chat has kind of a bit of a discussion about it, and they go, gosh, I'm just so torn about it. Well, I can't believe I've had this thought many, many times and never actually said it out loud. You know how we like to say, if guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns? Wouldn't you think that applies double for somebody that's trying to clean up their life with a criminal history? Just a thought. Just a thought.
I mean,
actually,
my basic position is if a person is so dangerous and untrustworthy that they can't be trusted to defend their own life, then maybe we don't need that person.
Yeah. And Alex,
yep.
He makes the other point that I was going to get to. He probably would have actually hit the cat if he'd have kept both hands on the pistol.
See, and that right there, Alex, that's actually a great endorsement for GoPro. And then we wouldn't have the problem with your portrait mode.
Well, you know what probably happened is like, he was like, oh, is that a mountain lion?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Hey,
and he pulled out his phone.
He's coming over here.
Wait a minute. Like, that's probably what happened. Anyhow, so
that's... Brett says, to be fair, how many convicted felons are hiking on a nature stroll? You know, I'm going to give it to you. That's a fair question. I don't personally know any convicted felons that are in the habit of taking nature strolls.
You don't know anybody that has shared their criminal history with you. I dare say that...
Actually, that's not entirely accurate either.
Okay, you don't know but most people would try and, for rather obvious reasons, probably not publicly share their criminal history.
Right. So. Absolutely. And I'm not talking about any one particular person. I have an interesting background. I've known some interesting people.
Right.
In fact, I've known some people that were in the military that probably technically shouldn't have been because of their records, were wavered in, and went on to be indispensably excellent soldiers. I've also known some people that went in without any kind of waiver and did some stupid shit, probably never should have been there to begin with, and aren't anymore. I've met a wide gamut of very interesting people. Well, you want to take this first one?
Sure. The past is an indicator of likely future results.
Absolutely.
But it's not a guarantee. In fact, sometimes a past, like, there's a reason why they have recovering drug addicts run drug addiction programs, because they know what it's like to have that monkey on your back. And you're never going to meet people that are really on the other side of it. You're never going to meet people that are more careful. Haha. You are never going to meet people who are more careful about foreign substances going in their body than somebody who kicked a drug habit. So,
yeah, no doubt.
All right, let's...
Or how much vaccine hesitation there was in the AA clinics.
Dude, I hadn't thought about that. But there was probably...
Oh, man, George is in D.C.
The Eye of the Taxpayer Association.
Dude.
From the heart... from behind enemy lines.
Yeah, he's in the swamp.
Dude, when was the last time you were there? Do you know that, like, FDR's got one of the biggest memorials there? And it's weird, man. It's weird.
Actually, George, while you're there, if you have time to do a little bit of sightseeing, do yourself a favor and go check out the National Cathedral and look for the gargoyles. Have you ever seen the gargoyles of the National Cathedral?
No.
They're like Darth Vader and the World War II soldier in the gas mask, Darth Maul. and various monsters from fiction. It's freaking gorgeous. Yeah, if you've never, if you're in DC and you've never seen the National Cathedral, do yourself a favor. It's like a pop culture reference to the defiance of evil, and it's actually quite brilliantly breathtaking. Okay.
Man, I had Vietnamese pulled pork there. It was
the National Cathedral.
Well, in Washington D.C. It had like pickled ginger that it had been stewed with.
Oh.
It was quite delicious. And my favorite monument was the TJ, the Thomas Jefferson. I thought it was pretty cool. So anyhow, let's keep bullshitting and not talking about DGUs.
Oh, I could tell some stories. You want to take this one?
Okay,
this one comes from East Point somewhere.
Yeah, so just a quick refresher for anybody that's new. DGUs are gun stories that are less than a week old. We try and tend to go for ones where the bad guy dies as part of the defensive gun story. But we'll take anything because we're trying to put it to the lie that that good guys with guns never stop bad guys, with or without guns, by the way. We typically say a bad guy with a gun, but I mean, it's more accurate to say that good guys with guns just stop bad guys from doing bad things. So, okay. And then the other exception to the rule is when we're updating a previous story, we'll go outside that week time frame.
And I think we have one or two updates this morning, I think.
So, anyhow... Prosecutor denies charges in the shooting that left one dead. So far, so good. We're not coloring the language here, are we? Investigators say incident began as road rage. East Point. A man won't be facing charges after an alleged road rage shooting that left one dead September 30th in East Point. At approximately 7:51 p.m. September 30th, East Point police officers were dispatched to the intersection of Stryker and David Avenues for a shooting. When they arrived, they observed an 18-year-old man lying in the roadway with a gunshot wound, the department said in a post. The man was declared... Go ahead.
You know what?
No, this is
I don't want to hit it yet because I'm not sure who the bad guy is yet.
Well, I think it's...
I have a suspicion.
The man was declared deceased. Officers made contact with a 16-year-old man who told them he shot the man in self-defense, the Post said. According to the department, the incident was initially a road rage on 8 Mile. Oh, wow. So does that mean this was in Detroit?
I think it does.
Just like any other road rage, two vehicles, one was cutting the other one off, brake checking and making gestures with their hand. And instead of going the opposite direction, this individual followed the other person. And that's when this ultimately ended up happening. Just a typical somebody's upset over somebody else's driving. Okay.
I hope this isn't a typical occurrence of someone being upset at someone else's driving.
Well, I think it was typical all the way up to where somebody got a case of the dead. But all the rest of this where...
Like, ooh, you call some SpaghettiOs.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, okay. Here's the thing with road rage, right? I see it a bit doing what I'm doing, okay? First things first, okay? Assume the people around you just made a mistake out there on the road. Okay? You might be wrong. You might be giving them too much credit. But if you go ahead and assume that the guy next to you made a mistake instead of just being a dick, that's probably good for you. And look, I get it here. Jeff Foxworthy's got that old joke where merge is the same thing as a personal challenge in Atlanta. Like, you'll turn on your blinker and people will speed up just so they can get to the stop sign or the traffic jam ahead of you one car length faster. I get it. It's frustrating. But it sounds like what happened is that Mr. 18-year-old did something shitty to Mr. 60-year-old. Mr. 60-year-old retaliated by doing something shitty back to Mr. 18-year-old. and Mr. 18-year-old decided he was going to get out of the car and come up to Mr. 60-year-old, and then Mr. 60-year-old said, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So don't harass people. Don't attack people's vehicles. Castle Doctrine applies to
yeah, Alex,
to your car.
I noticed that too. There's a line here that says, Ty was not a bad kid. His children, from what they can understand, are confused, Amadeo said. Amadeo being the Ann Arbor attorney representing Hale and his family. So apparently the assailant here who got the deads was Ty Hale. So yeah, apparently this 18-year-old has more than one kid. So that's I ain't gonna say this hard as this story isn't heartbreaking. It is, but my dude.
Unfortunately, we're clearly talking about an 18-year-old who doesn't always make the best decisions. And 18-year-old men are prone to being hot-headed and, well, frankly, stupid. And if you even want to say morally, ethically, philosophically, the 60-year-old bears some culpability because, my dude, you're 60 years old. You playing fuck games in traffic for? Why?
Right.
And then as Alex points out,
if you have kids, make better decisions. But here's something else. We're talking about an 18-year-old has kids, and here it says his children, from what they can understand, are confused.
Which means they're little.
How old are these kids?
They're a
year or two, 3,
maybe. Look, if the kids are older than like 3 or 4. Now we have a whole separate set of questions. Willow Bar says stepkids count too. Listen, I don't think these were his stepchildren.
Yes, I suspect that's not the case. Stepkids count too, but 18 is pretty early to have. Yay! No. I have a strong suspicion that these are not stepchildren.
Yeah.
Just based on the content of the evidence.
Anyhow,
I'm not going to throw a DRT on this one. It is a DRT, but this sounds like 2 guys were being shitheads, and one of them caught the wrong end of both guys making a bad decision here.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I think that is a fair assessment.
Let's move on to the next one. I got this one. Intruder shot, killed during Detroit home invasion.
More Detroit.
Oh, Detroit. All right, so come on, roll with me now. Detroit police say they're investigating a fatal home invasion near Stanley Street and Lorraine Street in the city. Police say the intruder had a relationship with the homeowner and was asked to leave. Officers say around 9 a.m. Wednesday morning, the man attempted to return to the home through the front window.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Do we even need to go any further?
If there's somebody else in the house that could have unlocked the door for you, and you're coming in through the window, I already have some questions. And most of them are, what you thinking, dude? What you thinking? Now, probably the most generous estimate of that situation I can assume from just that block of data, right? There's another person in the house and you, for some reason, are coming through the window. The most generous assumption I can make is that the door is locked and you have reason to believe like the other person in the house is screaming for help and you can't get the door open, so you go in the window to render aid. More likely, you're arguing with one another and one of you has been locked out. Here's the reasonable play. Go get a cup of coffee.
Yeah, wait for the
Walk
sun to rise.
the fuck away. Get yourself under control. Let the other person calm down. And then come back to it with fresh eyes later.
Yeah, Pitt
I'm not saying
says
it'll work,
coming home drunk.
but it's probably going to work better than this option.
Yeah, again, I think it's possible to point out that there appears to be an element of tragedy here. Let's go a little
Maul
further.
points out, says Kelly, and I know the story you're talking about, Mom, but there's an important distinction there in that when Kelly was trying to go in through the window of the home she owned and was arrested by the entire Rockdale County Sheriff's Department with long guns drawn on the homeowner in her private property on her yard, there wasn't somebody in the house to let her in. That was a nosy neighbor doing what they shouldn't do.
And that was a nosy neighbor going super Karen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I'm going and I'm scanning through the rest of the story, and this looks like...
It doesn't get any better.
Well, I mean, this looks like it was some kind of a domestic incident where that got out of control, and then the guy came back and ended up getting shot for trying to come through a window. So, don't... I mean, guys, in particular, let's be clear. We live in a world where if your girl hits you with a frying pan versus if you hit your girl with a frying pan, which one of those things do you think is gonna land? Which one of those two people do you think is going to prison? And which one of those two people do you think is not going to prison? So even if it's your house, or maybe it's not your house, but you pay the rent or help pay the rent or whatever, as Chris said, walk away. There's a thing, like when families get upset with each other, those situations are often dangerous, not because of what you see on the Oxygen Network and all that other bullshit where like redneck men get together and decide they're all gonna like, oh, should we rape our wives or murder our wives? Like that's not what happens. What does happen is because the love and hate barrier can be so thin, and then you're dealing with somebody that knows how to hurt you.
Right.
So yeah, walk away, get a cup of coffee. If you have to, yeah, Willowbar says snapped. That's not a bad one. Walk away, get a cup of coffee, and then just come back in the morning. Anytime you're crawling through the window in the dark, you're running some risks. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And Rebel Jack asks the question, is that pan cast iron or non-stick? Well, let me clarify. Yeah. So the difference between cast iron and non-stick is a murder charge or an assault charge.
Well, look, if your cast iron pan has been correctly cared for, it is non-stick.
Correct.
So,
correct. If your food is still sticking to your cast iron, it's not done yet.
Anyhow,
brown food tastes good. Let's move on to another. Oh, I like this headline. You want to take this one?
I get all the updates. Okay. Here we go. Chico, California. Okay, judge dismisses charges against teen for 2021 fatal shooting at T-shirt.
T-shirt. T-shirt Ponds.
That's a T-shirt pond.
I don't care if it's how it's pronounced. It is now.
Hey, man, meet me over at T-shirt. Anyhow, charges against a now 17-year-old teenager for shooting and killing a man and wounding another at Chico's T-shirt Ponds in September of last year were dismissed in Butte County Juvenile Court on Tuesday, according to the Butte County District Attorney's Office.
This happened in California? I bet the victims were wearing MAGA hats. That's what happened.
No, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually a lot more cynical than that, given the fact that these were young in California. Oh, yeah. Like, what's the 17-year-old's name? That's weird. District Attorney Mike Ramsey said at the end of the prosecution case, the judge ruled there was insufficient evidence to overcome a claim of self-defense in the incident and dismissed the case before presentation of any defense evidence. Well, that sounds like that was a really strong case. Or at least that sounds like the judge thought it was a really strong case. According to Ramsey, the dismissal came after 3 days of testimony last week and this week from 15 witnesses, surveillance videos, social media videos, diagram, expert testimony, and photographs. Okay, I'm going to back up a step and say,
yeah,
maybe this was actually self-defense. Evidence showed a group of minors were at a party to the east of T-shirt Ponds on September 4th, and at around 2:30 a.m., 4 minors reportedly left the party, walked along a bike trail through T-shirt ponds to go back home.
Wait. Before you go any further, let me double check something real quick. Okay, it does say fatal shooting. Because now suddenly the question I have is, what was this minor child doing with a handgun?
That is also the thing that made me...
that was where my initial suspicions erupted
right,
from.
nope, that was also the thing that made me cynical, and might still be, but anyhow. Testimony and video evidence indicated the 4 teens were associated with a local gang. There's a shock. Ramsey said one of the teens was armed with a pistol with a green laser attached. You don't want to waste bullets.
Nope. They're expensive now.
Yes,
especially in California.
Right. So he had a pistol with a laser sight, but I'm sure there were only like 6 rounds or 8 rounds in the magazine. So,
I'm sure.
According to testimony from numerous witnesses, a green laser flashed through a homeless camp near the trail, and the teens were heard yelling. In response, 4 to 8 people inside the camp approached the teens, and an argument began. Good Lord. Okay. Ramsey said the evidence showed the camp's residents were acting aggressively toward the teens. Additional statements from witnesses suggested some of the campers were armed with a gun and pointing it at the teens. Then shots were fired, and 2 people inside the camp were struck. What the fuck?
What?
Really? So the local Crips got into a shootout with, Crips and Bloods? No, Crips and hobos.
Shoot, buddy.
Ramsey said the first victim suffered fatal injuries while the second was injured in the leg and pelvis. In total, 8 spent bullet casings were found on the trail. The defense then argued the juveniles were only acting in...
Okay, question. Okay, it says the defense then argued the juveniles were only acting in response to the perceived threat against their lives. I want to roll back. Okay, this story is actually quite interesting. I'm going to roll back up here a little bit. According to testimony from numerous witnesses, the green laser flashed through a homeless camp near the trail.
I was going to come back to that.
And the teens were heard yelling in response.
I feel like we need the whole story because I'm going to keep going.
Because it sounds like this kid's just waving his gun around, waving the green, shining green laser on which we've already been told is on his weapon. That's brandishing.
Look, Ramsey said there were no security cameras in the pond area. However, there were some a few blocks away that caught the 4 teens running away from the scene, including the suspect still carrying a pistol. Ramsey said that police used those videos to help identify and catch the shooting suspect 13 days later. 13 days later. I'm not saying just because you don't turn yourself into the cops means you're guilty, just like pleading the Fifth Amendment doesn't mean you're not guilty, but I think...
I just had a brain fart as you scrolled past that picture. I was like, wait a minute. It says Chicago police.
No,
I thought this was in California. Oh, it's Chico. Got it. I just had a moment there. But like, wait.
Prosecutors argued the teens went out looking for trouble that night and opened fire when they found it, Ramsey said. However, the judge ruled there was insufficient evidence to overcome a claim of self-defense. Ramsey noted in order to find the juvenile suspect guilty of murder, the law requires the prosecution prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the juvenile did not act in self-defense. The prosecution is required to disprove the defense that the juvenile was in reasonable fear for his life or the lives of others. The dismissal of the case was caused by inconsistencies between the testimonies of the various witnesses. The judge decided, you mean there were inconsistencies in the testimony of the people from the homeless camp?
Right.
Okay. However, the judge did find the teen shooting suspect in violation of a previous previous probation from April 2021 for an attempted robbery back in 2020. Ramsey said the judge found the teen by consuming alcohol, being out past curfew, associating with gang members, and being in illegal possession of a firearm. The 17-year-old is pending sentencing on October 26th for the violation of his probation. Look, Sean Stryker asks what I think the obvious answer.
Right, and to answer your question, Sean, if this kid was white, they'd have hanged him already.
Yeah, his face would be everywhere.
It's not complicated.
Okay, I've said many times, that I think just because you're a criminal doesn't mean you automatically forfeit your right to life.
We've already said it on this show. Just because you're a criminal, just because you're a felon, if you've served your time, you haven't forfeited your right to defend yourself from a marauding freaking mountain lion.
Right. Right. And even if, and the example that I've always given is that, like, if drug dealer A meets up with drug dealer B and drug dealer B pulls a gun on drug dealer A and tries to rob him, and drug dealer A shoots and kills drug dealer B, I understand that the law in most states will charge you with felony murder, but I think ethically, like, you've got a voluntary, non-violent transaction, and then the non-aggression principle was violated by drug dealer B. Ethically, I think drug dealer A is clean. Yeah. I really do. But this is, I think it's pretty obvious that we can make some assumptions about what happened here. We're talking about a kid that wasn't just on probation. And as you say, why did a teenager have a handgun? It's supposed to be real hard for teenagers to get handguns.
It's supposed to be real hard for anybody to get a handgun in California, as I'm led to believe. But here we're talking about a young kid with a criminal history, right? Obviously, a gangbanger, inebriated, waving a gun around in public.
Man,
to your point about felony murder, how in the hell does this not come down to felony murder when you've got, in the article, the judge lists, the judge did find the teen shooting suspect in violation of a previous probation from April 2021 for an attempted robbery. I believe, I don't know if that's going to be a felony charge or not. I think it depends on the nature of the robbery.
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into robbery charges.
Ramsey said the judge found the teen in violation by his consuming alcohol, being out past curfew, associating with gang members, and being in illegal possession of a firearm on this occasion. I guess maybe none of these breach the barrier into felony. Yeah. And that's how he dodged the felony murder charge. Maybe.
Well, I guess we'd have to do some more research on California law as to how that works. But one of the big deals, if you're on any type of probation, it doesn't matter what it is. Your probation officer, and I blanked on the name of the agency. Your probation officer basically has the right to restrict who you talk to, right? And it's very, very, very common for there to be, you're not allowed to associate with any known felons, for example. Or if, as it appears in this case, that you and your gang members attempted to rob somebody, well, you are now not allowed to have association with your gang members. And I don't necessarily think this is one of those things where you have to be litigious and have an exact following of the law. Like, if you live next door to a gang member, you can't do shit about who your neighbor is.
Right.
What you can control is if you go out to a party with them and get drunk carrying weapons. So, as far as how does that shake out for felony murder? I don't know, because this is California, and California's weird. But this kid obviously has a pattern of criminal behavior, and they were drunk and probably just doing that thing that kids do. Well, not my kids.
Brag about carrying a gun with a laser pointer on it and wave it at people.
Yes. Well, not my kids, not your kids, right, because they've been taught basic gun safety. But
there is a certain segment of the population that endorses and even celebrates recreational felony activity in their youth.
Apparently, there's a wood chipper headline that that somebody wants us to get to? David Mathey? Yeah. Great. So, so the McMichaels get life in prison for citizen's arrest gone bad, but this gang member murders a homeless person.
That's what he's talking about.
Oh.
So it's not an article that I pulled up, but sure, this will be our one more. A family is mourning the loss of a loved one after a man died after falling into a wood chipper while trimming trees in North California. The gruesome incident happened Tuesday in Menlo Park, a suburb of San Francisco, according to police. Police did not release the man's name or many other details about the incident. Police said they were still working to notify next of kin. Peggy Lane. God, don't put puns in the bad places. Man falls into wood chipper on Peggy Lane. They found the man dead in the wood chipper. The first responders, they found him dead in the wood chipper, not past it.
I think.
Yeah, there's nothing funny here, Dave. Sorry, buddy. Nothing funny there.
I think they're saying they found him dead in the wood chipper because
he fell in. It doesn't read like he was being disposed of.
I'm sure they found part of him in the wood chipper.
Yes.
Like, good Lord, you scrape all that up with.
But this was not a scene from Dale and what's his face versus Evil. That. So anyway, moving on. It is Friday. It is, that's the show. Here's your safety brief. It is Friday. Highland Games of this weekend. Giant men in skirts drinking scotch and beer are going to be throwing telephone poles for distance for your entertainment. And I highly recommend you come on out. We'll be at Stone Mountain. We'll be having a blast. Come check us out at the McLaren tent. You can meet the Smudge and the fam. And it'll be a damn good day. As for safety briefs, sex, drugs, rock and roll, farm animals, and wood chippers. No two at the same time.
Rebel Jack.
He was a chipper young lad.
Oh my God.
Okay, I'll give.
Ooh, and then Jake Kukin showed up.
Jake the late. The late Jake Kukin. We're glad to see you, but we're just signing off. Y'all be safe out there. I'm going to go shoot some houses and then get my skirt on straight. Love you. We'll see you Monday morning.